of, Randall Road.
Yeah, right. But if you go on 90, you can get it right off at 53 and Big Bowl is right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you wanna, I could, let's see, you said Wednesdays and Thursdays are not good for you?
But we have something on Thursday, and he has a guy's lunch that he goes to every Wednesday, and he could miss, but
No, it's okay. How about Tuesday?
Tuesday would be good.
Tuesday, how about Tuesday the 9th? How does that work for you?
Wait a minute. Yeah, that would work. I have something in the morning, but I'm done by.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. We could meet at Big Bowl if you want, and that would be fine. You want to meet at 12:30 or 12:15? Okay, 12. Sure. Okay, well, let's do that. Let's do. I can't believe I'm hearing that. You're lucky. It's all so busy. Almost the fun altogether. That's the night. Well, you'll have a great time. I'm sure you're flying up to California. Well, that's life changing. Challenging, trying to get everybody in. Everyone says, well, how many come to Chicago? Friends would say, so did you go out to Vail. And I'm saying, we have so many families, so much friends, so much family, so many friends. Here, it's really hard to get together with them. Right? It's great. We look forward to seeing both of you. Well, stay safe, stay healthy, don't get sick this time. All right, thank you. not remember now. I know. Sure. Thank you. I'm sure he'll love that. Wow, what a great, that was a great idea.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
It's still Chodesh Tov.
Yes, it's a 2-day Rosh Chodesh.
Yes, it is.
Yellow.
Oh,
Hello.
hi, stranger. Nice of you to come back.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Nice of you to wait.
We've been
Yes.
sitting here for a week.
Oh,
You,
how was your vacation?
it was fabulous. It was
Of course.
it was really wonderful. Lovely Cleveland, Wisconsin, but mostly not the location, but the people involved. But Cleveland, Wisconsin,
What's
which is
there?
But yeah,
It's-
where is it?
I mean, the way our vacations work, first of all, my kids do all the planning at this point. So there is like a we choose they choose a place within 3 hours drive. Although we did make an exception for Des Moines, which is about 5 hours drive. But usually it's within 3 hours drive, and it's we're looking for an Airbnb that can fit everybody, but that's also reasonably priced. And it needs to have a Walmart nearby, and preferably a minor league baseball team within an hour's drive or so. And also some kind of swimming something. This time it didn't have a pool, but it had a hot tub, which the kids hung out in. It was just ridiculously beautiful. I don't know this has, for the last a couple years, we've just had these like fantastic Airbnbs where people really made the effort to make the place special. And I guess another thing is it needs to have a decent sized kitchen because we cook everything. So that's another thing. So they're getting pretty good at finding these kind of places. So this one, it looked like a mini castle. It was on a hill, and it had a vineyard. I think it was called the Castle Vineyard or something. And you could have been in Europe at this place. It was just the coolest. And yeah. And then we went to the Manitowoc County Fair, which the kids enjoyed all the rides. Manitowoc, when you're in Wisconsin, Manitowoc is a city, but it has the same amount of people that Northbrook does, which is funny. And so, yeah, went to a baseball game. We went to county fair and smoked cigars, drank bourbon, the regular. All righty.
No drinking and driving.
No, that was all it was all done responsibly.
You have a vacation like it used to be, 60s and the 50s, 60s, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. And it works. Part of how it works is the kids, um, first of all, they're still young enough. Like the oldest ones are 13. They're still young enough. I don't know if you can keep on doing it in a way that will keep everybody interested as they get older. But right now, they're at the right age and they love spending time together. So you don't have to do a lot for them to be entertained.
Rabbi, I was thinking a huge part of the criticism of secular culture in the United States has to do with they go back to the book Bowling Alone, that people aren't getting together, it is so different in the Orthodox world. I can't believe it. It's like another society totally from what the secular American society is.
I agree. There's so many moments that are primarily about spending time with people. There's, you have, so my son from New York was here for 2 Shabbases. So you have the kids hanging out with each other on Shabbos, plus the parents getting to hang out and schmooze with each other. And then, like on a trip like this, you have the drive that they're hanging out together, and then they're essentially playing together the whole time. But also the parents, like, um, we get to have like relaxing time. You're like sitting outside looking up at the stars together, smoking cigars
And ignoring cell phones and all of that crap stuff.
right. Now they do have tablets, but they're not on them very much during this, but they do. My grandchildren do have electronic stuff, but honestly, it wasn't like you had to say, get off your devices. They were running around just doing stuff, playing with each other. There was a basketball court. There was a movie theater in the house. There was
Oh, that's
So
nice.
yeah, so they got to do a lot of fun stuff together. Yeah, but I agree with you. Now, not every family should be spending that much time together. That's another
It depends on
discussion.
the family dynamics.
Exactly. Also, if anybody is depressed, I've noticed, like Shabbos is very hard for people that suffer from depression, um, and stuff. But yeah, so there are exceptions to it, but
It's the cousins too. They say that because a lot of people are having fewer and fewer kids, there's no cousins around.
Yeah,
Oh, good
yeah, that's
point.
true. That's true. That's true. And I notice it also with my sister's family, my brother's families. They're always seeing each other. Even if they don't, there'll always be a couple near each other somewhere, the cousins, and they're often seeing each other, especially siblings.
I
Yes.
grew up with my cousins, so
Yeah,
every Sunday, practically there was something with cousins doing. Yeah.
me too. And I had
I
very
noticed
few.
it also, by the way, like when I when I was growing up, there were a lot of Greena, like the first generation um, European mostly survivors. Um, and they used to do like every Sunday, there was a whole community of them that would get together at this one lake. And it was like every Sunday. And then my wife's family, who are Sephardim, they had the same thing. Every Sunday, they would spend all day together. Like when I first met my wife's family, it was on one of those Sundays, and like they show up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they left my mother-in-law's at like 10 o'clock at night, Many packs of cigarettes were smoked, and
Yeah.
but it was like yeah, and so it was one of the things that for my father also, like, he grew up in a neighborhood where all his cousins were around. He's very close to his cousins, and it just continued into our generation. We One of the things also is that we always had we had these summer trips when we moved back to the States. When I was in Israel, I had one brother there who had kids, but when I moved back to the States, there was my sister and in the beginning, two brothers, then my sister and a brother, but they had lots of kids. And we went on these summer trips together. Like one year we went to Lake Tahoe. We drove to Lake Tahoe, and my brother brought an RV, and I got tents, and we would go to these campgrounds, and we would be in tents, and his family would be in the RV. And and those were like 2-week trips, hanging out with each other. And then we went to Maine. We did it for, I think, 6 or 7 years. We went to, what's that place in Michigan where Mackinac. And I don't know, that was another thing I think that helped a lot, was that everybody got used to the idea that you're spending a lot of time with each other.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
just a little thing. I can't help it
Yeah.
when you mention Agrina. It
Yeah.
always pops in my head that David's Aunt Riva told us when she was from the old school, but when her relatives came, they were walking down the street, they'd say, "Look in the fenster." And she'd say, "Don't say fenster, say vinda."
Vinda.
Vinda. I just loved it.
That's awesome. You have to be like an American. Speaking of that, there was I saw like a clip from I think it must be a recent Henry Louis Gates Finding Your Fathers or whatever it's called, where he did Seth Meyers. And Seth Meyers did not know much about his family farther than like back than his father on the Myers side. So part of Henry Louis Gates' challenge was to one of the things they wanted to know was, where did the name come from? So
Yeah.
they found his, I think it was his great grandfather, who came to America at the age of 15, and he got off the boat, and he got here before there was Ellis Island. So I don't know what year that had to be, and then but we got off in New York, and then he ended up in the Pittsburgh area, and he would sell pots and pans. He would just have the pots and pans like in a sack over his back, and he'd walk to different houses in more rural areas to sell them pots and pans. That's how he made a living. So they showed his obituary because he started off like that. He eventually got a dry goods store. He started to do well. He had a nice house in Pittsburgh. But so the obituary just went through the story, and it was sort of funny because you can see the obituary. They show you the obituary, and there's one paragraph that starts off, since he was Sabbath observant, he decided he would be a salesman, so he sold pots and pans, door to door. That's how it started, since he was Sabbath observant. But when they read it on the show, they just started from the part they read from the obituary, but they started from the part he sold pots and pans. There was nothing about, they just left out that part before with him, since he was Sabbath observant. He sold pots and pans.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So, we're somewhere here. You know what I've been noticing in Devarim? There's been a lot of emphasis on taking care of the Levium, looking out for the Levium, and their special role, the special role of Levium. And we did so much work early on in the book of Bamidbar about the Levium and how it started off that they really were going to be the people really doing everything in the Mishkan, and then suddenly it's Aaron and his family are doing the stuff, and the Levium are essentially the guards, the honor guard and the music for the sacrifice, etc., which seemed like a very reduced role. But then you see like there's such an emphasis on taking care of the stranger and the Levi, and because they are going to do the service of God, etc. It's just so interesting that it became so emphasized in Devarim. I mean, I guess it's the end of the Mishkan, really, of the traveling Mishkan. And maybe that there was an understanding that their role is now going to be much different, because they also were involved in carrying the Mishkan in the desert, but I guess their role is going to be much different. And so I guess, like the Rambam said, they're going to start to be teachers of the people and like a holy group. So I don't know. There is some kind of shift there. I was saying that because I just saw that thing about the Levim. Make sure to take care of the Levim. We got lending with interest and not borrowing with interest and not enabling a loan with interest and not delaying paying people who work for you. And you can't, also, if you take collateral, it has to all be done through the courts. Okay. So this is 241, negative commandments. He prohibited taking collateral from a widow, whether poor or rich. I think we might have. Well, we'll just do this anyways. I'm not sure if we did this. He prohibited taking collateral from a widow, whether poor or rich. As it is stated, you shall not take a widow's garment in pawn. The regulations of this commandment have already been explained in the 9th chapter above Metzia. And then this is a long one. He prohibited us from taking in pawn vessels with which people prepare food, such as tools for grinding, kneading, and cooking, and tools for the slaughter of animals, and other ones besides this that are grouped by the name something with which food of sustenance is made. As it is stated, for it is a soul that takes in pledge, that he takes in pledge. So this is, I guess, because it's the maintenance of the soul. So that's how they're deriving that, for it is soul that he takes in pledge. And it remains for us here to explain their saying, and he is liable on account of two vessels. As it is stated, one shall not take a pledge, a lower millstone, nor an upper millstone. For this may make us think that they are two commandments, and all the more so what they're saying, and he is liable for the lower millstone on its own. The content of this statement is that anyone who takes as collateral a vessel with which we make food of sustenance transgresses a negative commandment as it is explained, and one who takes several vessels, each one of which is used for food of sustenance as collateral, is liable for each and every vessel. For example, if he takes as collateral a tool for grinding, a tool for kneading, and a tool for making of bread, and this is something that doesn't need explanation. It is like one who takes the garment of Reuven's widow as a pledge, and likewise the garment of Shimon's widow, and likewise the garments of Levi's widow, that he transgresses for each and every garment. However, the question is about one who takes as a pledge 2 vessels with which both together he makes food of sustenance. So maybe like a mortar and a pestle, something like that. Do we say that since the specific preparation of food is in fact only finished by both of them, the 2 of them are surely one vessel, and he should only be liable on account of one vessel? Or, since they are 2 vessels, he should be liable for each one on its own? This is an example of the kind of thing the Gemara spends its time on always, almost always. These are the kinds of questions, which is, you've got something where you could potentially look at it from 2 angles. Sometimes there's even more than 2 angles, but you have to decide at some point which way we're going to decide it. These are often the kind of cases where you'll hear the words Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. These and these are words of the living God. So it was specifically said about the disagreements between Hillel and Shammai, but it's a principle that gets applied much more broadly to the kinds of arguments that we see in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. And this is a perfect kind of example of how that would be. You have 2 people arguing, and you're saying they're both the word of God. So the assumption is, by the time the argument gets to this level, where you're dealing with, it's somehow reached the level of the best and the brightest of the generation. Usually, if it's gotten that far, it's been vetted, and the questions that are going to be thought about are questions that are already kind of thorny, or again, like this, where you can look at them from more than one angle. And so it makes sense that you could have more than one right answer. You could have more than one right answer. There's a famous statement of the Talmud that there are shivim panim leTorah, that there are 70 faces to Torah. There's an assumption that according to that phase, that there are different perspectives. Imagine a 70-facet gem. So, when you're focused on each facet, that's a perspective of the whole gem. But it's from a particular perspective. So here you have an example. You have. Let's say we're talking about a mortar and a pestle, or you're talking about an upper grindstone and a lower grindstone. I happen to have a picture of that. If I can get to, when I was in Israel, I spent every year on those pastors' trips, we'd go to a place where this place where it was like from the times of the Mishnah. One second here. So if I'm going to see if can I find it? How do you like that? It found it based on me just putting that in, even though I didn't put it in. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so I'm gonna. Can you still see me? No, or you're seeing the text, right?
Yes, you have a little box with the text.
Okay, so let me see if I can. Let me see 1 second. Well,
Just whatever you have, put it in front of your face.
you see it?
Raise it up a little.
Do you see
There
it
you
now?
go.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
So that's an upper and a lower millstone. That's what they mean. There's one that's vertical and one that's horizontal. and they would have either people or an animal that would pull it around in a circle. It would just go around in a circle, and they'd put wheat or barley or whatever they want to crush. They'd put it, on the horizontal stone, and eventually that vertical stone would go over it and it would crush it. So let's say you have something like this. In order for it to work, it needs both parts. But they are actually two separate parts that are put together. There's one designed to be an upper millstone and one designed to be a lower millstone, and that's how they'd be sold. If they had the Sears Roebuck catalog and they were getting it from there, you'd order an upper millstone and a lower millstone, right? That's the one you saw, right? Is
Yes.
that you saw? Okay. Yeah. So here, that's our question, which is, so that's what the Rambam is presenting, because this is the question that they have to resolve. Is that called two or is that called one? Because it is technically two distinct pieces, but they only work when they're together. So again, however, the question is about one who takes as a pledge two vessels with which both together he makes food of sustenance. Do we say that since the specific preparation of food is in fact only finished by both of them, the two of them are one vessel, or he should only be liable on and he should only be liable on account of one vessel? So if he took them as collateral, he would be lashed once because it counts as one vessel. And they explain to us that he's liable with them on account of two vessels. So they are learning from the Torah. They are deriving from the Torah that something like that setup with the upper and lower millstone is counted as two separate vessels, even though the work is done by bringing the two of them together, like a lower millstone and an upper millstone, as the grinding will not be done by one of them alone. The language of the Mishnah is, one shall not take as a pledge a lower millstone nor an upper millstone. Not only these, did they say, is prohibited, but anything with which we make food of sustenance, as it is stated, for it is a soul that he takes in pledge, that he is liable for them on account of two tools, not that they are two separate commandments. This is always what he's trying to, almost always when he does this, he is trying to resolve this, because if you're liable for two sets of lashes, shouldn't this be counted as two negative commandments? And so he's already done this with many of them, where he says it is one negative commandment, but even though it's one negative commandment, in other words, it's stated in one place, and we're meant to learn everything from that one place, but there's still a possibility that you could be liable on more than one account. Like he said earlier, if I take, let's say there's like a family that has a farm and they owe the bank money. So the bank wants to take collateral. So it happens that it's like a father with sons, and maybe there's grandchildren who are married, and they're all part of this farm. And there's several widows there. So when he takes something from, and he's going to take something from each person, when he takes something from those various widows, you're going to be liable for every widow that you took it from. And he's saying there you would agree, because it looks like three separate things. But he's saying that it's true here too, even though it's two things from one person, and you need both of these things in order for it to work together. You're still liable for two, but it's only counted as one commandment. The language of the Sifrei about this matter is, they said, just as a lower millstone and an upper millstone are distinct in being tools performing one task, for which one is liable for this one on its own and that one on its own, so too for all two tools performing one task, is one liable for this one on its own and that one on its own. I wonder if you would say that about a scissors. You think they would say that about a scissors? It is technically two pieces that are put together, and you could separate them. That would be interesting.
No, that's one.
I know. See where it goes
It's
now?
put-
You
it's
see how you're
put
feeling it?
together.
I know. Now you're seeing where you could sort of, because there's got to be a point where this is ridiculous and we're not going to say it's two anymore. And then there's got to be the point where everybody would agree it's two. And then there's a middle point where you're not sure
Well,
in
on a
either direction.
scissors, if each part could be used like a knife.
Yes.
Well, but
So-
here, no, but he's saying here they can't be used by themselves. The upper
Yeah,
millstone and the lower millstone cannot be used by themselves. And he's still
And
going to
yet-
count it as two. He's still going
and
to count it
yet-
as two.
Right.
Yeah. So with the scissors, you wouldn't even need it to be that you could use them as a knife, which theoretically you could. But I'm saying it doesn't sound like you would need it because he didn't need it with the upper millstone and the lower millstone.
Right.
So,
Right.
so-
That's what
right.
I'm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Ba, 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 ba. So that's the cifre. Just the lower millstone and upper millstone are distinct in being tools performing one task, for which one is liable for this one on its own and that one is on its own. So too, for all two tools performing one task, one is liable for this one on its own and that one on its own. The explanation of the statement is that even though they are used to do the same task, he's liable for this one on its own and for that one on its own. I don't know why. Apparently, I'm not the only one who's fascinated by this because it's a common kind of clip that comes up like reels on Facebook or whatever. But there are these guys who clean watches. I don't know why it is so fascinating to watch it, but they'll have like especially like an automatic watch. They'll open it up and then they take each one of those pieces, the various wheels, etc., these tiny, tiny little pieces from inside the watch, and they clean them in a solution. They add tiny bits of oil on it, and then they put everything back, and it starts running again. And then they get it to run it, exactly on time, and then they close it up. So now, let's say you have
That's
a
a
watch.
miracle.
Yeah, but if you have a watch that has all those moving parts, are you going to say that the guy should be liable for 10? He takes the guy's watch, but that's not a tool for food, I guess. That's what you'd say. It's not a tool for food. These have to be tools for food. Oh no. No, with the widow, it's taking anything. With the widow, it's just taking something from her, any kind of
Right.
pledge. This one is about food. But let's say you did it from a widow. I don't know, because the widow, it didn't say this business about two. Yeah, so forget it. The watch doesn't work. Okay. And the explanation of the statement is that even though they are used to do the same task, he is liable for this one on its own and that one on its own. If one transgressed, took it as collateral and grabbed it from him, they remove it from his hand and return it to its owners. So you can fix this and not get lashes if you return it. This is one, he had mentioned this before with collateral, or let's say taking any money that you weren't supposed to take, like taking a loan, collecting money from a loan after Shemitah or one of those kind of things, that these all are mitzvos that can be fixed. They're negative commandments that can be solved. So, but this is similar to theft. So if somebody steals something, even though this is a terrible crime, it's considered, one of the, as far as society is concerned, it's one of the most difficult, pernicious crimes. And yet, if somebody's caught having stolen it, they can return the item. So now, let's just say, just to make this case as simple as possible, he stole it and then he admitted he stole it. Because that's the simplest case, because then he's not charged double. So let's say he stole it and then he admitted he stole it. He's not going to get lashes because he can return it. Now, if it's not around to return it, then he can give money for it. Here, it's as we're going to see, that's not going to work. If you took it for collateral. With a loan, it will work, because a loan is always like that. That the whatever you got as the loan, you have a right to return its value to the owner unless otherwise stipulated. So obviously, if you have a lawnmower that you really cherish and you're going to lend it to this guy to do his lawn, you could stipulate you must return this lawnmower to me. But in a regular loan, if somebody lends me eggs, I don't have to give them eggs back. I could give them the value of eggs back. So it is with a lot of things, but that's a loan. It doesn't work that way with collateral, as we're going to see. If one transgressed and took it as collateral and grabbed it from him, they remove it from his hand and return it to its owners. But if it was lost or burnt before he returned it, he is lashed. And likewise with the garment of a widow. So again, because they were taken as collateral, he doesn't have an option of just returning their monetary value. He has to return the object itself. Now, if he's already destroyed or used the object and it's no longer around, then he is going to get lashes. And you'll get lashes for each item that you took. And the regulation of this commandment have already been explained in the 9th chapter of Bava Metzia. He prohibited, oh yeah, we did do this already, to not steal, kidnap an Israelite person, and that is his saying in the 10 Commandments, you shall not steal. So according to this, in the 10 Commandments, when it says you shall not steal, it is talking about kidnapping. It is not talking about regular theft. Regular theft, as we're going to see, is learned by in other places, like for instance in Exodus 21:16. Oh no, that's going to be all right. We'll see. Anyway, so there's different places. Sometimes it's talking about objects, sometimes it's talking about people, and as we're going to see, that if you steal people for the purpose of selling them, then you're liable to the death penalty. This is one of the death penalty cases. This is how the Gemara knows that this is what it's talking about in the 10 Commandments, because in the 10 Commandments, it only says don't steal. It doesn't distinguish between what you're stealing. So how do they know it's talking about kidnapping? It's because they had a tradition that there is a possible death penalty with each one of the 10 statements. Each one of the 10 statements has a potential for the death penalty. So you have idolatry, you have taking God's name in vain, like cursing God, let's say, as we saw in the Torah portion of Emor, the person who cursed God, he was put to death. I think it was an Emor. Or that might have been the wood gatherer. Somewhere we had the case where the guy is put to death for cursing God. So cursing, that would be number 2. Number 3 would be Shabbos. I don't know. Number 1, according to the Rambam, heresy would be part of number 1, denying God. Denying God's existence, denying one of the principles of faith about God. But there's not an actual death penalty for that person. I don't know what they do about that according to the Rambam. But anyways, number 3, it's really number 4. Statement number 4 is Shabbos. And Shabbos has a death penalty associated with it. Honor your parents has a death penalty associated. If somebody curses their parents or bruises their parents, they are liable for the death penalty. Then you have stealing, and so the question is, with stealing, what would be the death penalty? So the only kind of stealing where there is a death penalty is kidnapping for the purpose of selling. I guess there is one other scenario, but it's not technically a death penalty. If somebody sneaks into somebody else's house in order to steal, that person, if it's at night, if they really don't know who the person is, they're not sure what they're capable of doing, the person is allowed to kill them. It's called a baba machteres. But that's not really a death penalty. It's close, but it's not actual death penalty. So, anyways, that's how they decide that low. And this is part of a tradition, but that not stealing means stealing people for the purpose of, in other words, kidnapping them for the purpose of selling them. And that is his saying in the Ten Commandments, you shall not steal. And the language of the Mechilta, which is a halachic midrash, is you shall not steal is a prohibition against stealing a soul. And in the Gemara Sanhedrin, they said, from where do we know the prohibition against stealing souls? Rabbi Yoshia says from you shall not steal. Rabbi Yochanan says from they shall not be sold as slaves, which is later on. They do not disagree. One enumerates the prohibition against selling, and they do not execute the punishment upon him until he steals and sells. But once he transgressed these two negative commandments, he is liable for strangulation, as he, maybe exalted, said, one who steals his soul and sells him, etc. And the regulation of this commandment have already been explained in chapter 1 of Sanhedrin. He prohibited us not to steal money, and that is his may be exalted, saying, you shall not steal. And this is in Leviticus 19, which is where love your neighbors yourself, and a lot of the other social laws are, and that's repeated over there. You shall not steal. And in the Mechilta, again, the halachic midrash, it says you shall not steal is a prohibition against stealing money. One who transgresses this negative commandment is liable to pay that which is mentioned by Scripture, whether it is a double payment, 4 times or 5 times, or just to return the principal. So again, if he admits it after doing it, then he doesn't have to pay double or 4 or 5. He just has to pay back the principal. If he was caught before he admitted it, then with a normal item, an inanimate item or money, he pays double. If it is either a cow, a sheep, or a goat, so with a cow, he'd pay 5 times the value, and with a sheep or a goat, he pays 4 times the value. Because it is stated about stealing, he shall pay double. We know that the punishment, from where do we know the prohibition? Hence, we learn to say you shall not steal, even if only to taunt the owner. Right. So here, again, I remember that we were looking at this, that, you might say that I'm only taking it to annoy him or to teach him a lesson, but I plan on giving it back. That doesn't make a difference. It's still called stealing. You shall not steal even in order to pay 4 or 5 times. And also, what if you want to give this guy money, but he's very proud, and so he won't take money, but he needs money. So you could forcibly pay him 4 or 5 times the amount. Let's say if you grab one of his cows and sell it. So now you're going to have to pay 5 times the value of that cow. So suddenly this guy's going to come into 5 times the value of that cow. That's money. So you might do that for that purpose. That's still considered wrong. You're still violating you shall not steal, even if you have good intentions. The regulations of this commandment have already been explained in the 7th chapter of Bava Kama. And this means that Robin Hood is wrong. Is clearly Robin Hood is every much a thief, every much a thief as any, as any selfish thief. Even though this person is stealing and he wants to give it away as tzedakah, or this person is stealing like Robin Hood, where he wants to take from the rich and give to the poor, whatever his motivation, it's still wrong. It's still called stealing. The regulation of this commandment have already been explained in the 7th chapter of Bava Kama.
Well, in the case that you steal the guy's cow to pay him 5 times, you could have just given him the money.
No, but the guy, let's say the guy's proud. He won't take it.
Oh, I see.
This
Proud.
guy, there's guys like that. They just won't take your money. So now you're going to be a chacham, and you're gonna, I got a way to give him money, and then
I
you.
like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, now we have gezela. That was geneva, where you're stealing without the person present. But now we have, he prohibited us that we not steal that to which we do not have entitlement by force and duress. So this is somebody who's like stealing a purse off the person, or forcing the person to give them their wallet and their watch, etc. That's called gezela. That's called robbery. So typically the distinction is, in English, theft means you did it when the person isn't there, and robbery is when you did it when the person is there. And every time I bring this up, I feel like a tick. I have to tell you the story of when we woke up in the morning. We were living in Israel in the neighborhood of Neve Yaakov. I think it was I who went into the living room first and saw that the drawers were on the floor and everything was in disarray. And clearly our house had been broken into. So I called the police, and I spoke in English to the police, and I said, I've been robbed. And the woman said back to me, is the person still there? And I said, no. And she said, did he have a gun? And I said, I don't know. I didn't see him. And then she like pauses and she goes, that's theft. That's not robbery. Robbery would be if he did it while in front of you. Theft is when he comes in and you're not there. So an Israeli police person
And
taught
she
me
was
English.
answering in English?
In English. She was teaching me English. And that was one time I got rebuked. Another time I got rebuked, I called in. I was walking with my stepfather, my mother's husband, who passed away about 15 years ago. And he had been in the Army, in the United States Army. And we were walking, and we heard these sounds. I thought they were firecracker or fireworks. But he says to me, that's an M16. And I said, are you sure? It sounded like fireworks. And he goes, trust me, that's an M16 that just did that. So we got back home and we were talking about it. Then I decided I should call the police just to tell them that we heard it. So I call the police, and then, somebody picks up, and I tell them that I heard sounds, and I was with somebody who told me that they believed that they were from an M16, that somewhere nearby somebody's firing an M16. And the lady goes, when did that happen? I said, about 15 minutes ago. So then there's a pause, and she goes, so you waited 15 minutes to call and tell me that you heard somebody firing an M16. It's like your grandmother is on the other side of the phone when you do that. Okay. But that's that thing with Israelis, that thing where on the one hand, they're like family. On the other hand, they're tough. That's it. In both of those, it felt like that. Okay. He prohibited us that we not steal under duress. And that is his saying, and you shall not rob. See? Rob. And so have the masters of tradition explained, you shall not rob is like the content of, and he robbed the spear from the hand of the Egyptian. That's in the second book of Shmuel. That's talking about people who there were several people in David's close circle that were just incredibly brave and accomplished soldiers. And so this is one of them. I don't know if it was Benayo, Ben Yehoyada. It was one of the group. And he like grabbed a spear out of the hand of an Egyptian. And it is a negative commandment that is rectified by a positive commandment. That is, he's saying he shall return the stolen property. So it's similar to theft. But even if he nullified the positive commandment, he is not lashed, since it is a negative commandment that is given to repayment. So, like we said, with theft, such that if he burned the stolen property or threw it in the sea, he can give back what it's worth. This is different than the collateral. Yeah, and this was, I may have misspoke about theft. This is the thing with theft, that if you don't have the thing itself, you can return the value of the thing, and that's still called returning it. So if you want to do tshuva for what you did, the way to do tshuva is to pay the person back. Oh wait, we went very long here. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. I'm sorry I went so long. I wasn't paying attention at the time.
Don't
All
be
right, be well,
sorry.
guys.
You're making up for lost time.
There
Okay.
we go. That's it.
Good.
That must be it. All right, be
Thank
well,
you.
guys. You're
Thank you.
welcome. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye, Rabbi.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sam. Bye. Bye, Stell.